This week's episode is brought to you by Communicore Weekly, the musical. It's probably the best 45 minutes you will ever experience in your life. Pick it up on iTunes, Amazon, and CD Baby.
Communicore Weekly, wanna get geeky, bob around boats, and five-legged goats. Communicore Weekly, you might get some freaky. Waited all week, I'm sure you already know this greatest online show. Welcome to Season 3.
Hello and welcome to Communicore Weekly, the greatest online show and home of the world's first pair of independently born identical twins. I'm George.
And I'm Jeff. And thanks to everyone who came out to the Mice Chat 11th anniversary weekend a couple weekends ago and coming out to say hello to everyone and meeting me. I met a lot of really cool cadets, which was awesome. I was very happy about that. I gave out a lot of buttons. We had a good time. I wore a dress. I mean, it was a really good weekend. So,
yeah, I saw the photos. I saw the photos of you in the dress.
You sound like you're not overly thrilled by...
Oh, yay, I saw the photos of you in a dress!
Thanks, George. You made me feel a lot better and secure about myself by saying it that way. Thanks a lot.
Did they call you Vanna Humbuck?
No, they actually called me Mrs. Heimbuck during the course of the game show, but I was the Vanna White.
So did you keep looking for your mom whenever they said that?
I at first I did too. I kind of looked over my shoulder like, who is he talking about? But he was referring to me. Sadly, I would like to report that I lost a bet or something. However, it was my idea to wear that dress as the game show hostess, so kind of hilarious. Also, not the first time I wore a dress. Probably not the last time.
Wow, this is Communicore
This got
Weekly.
deep. We got really deep.
True confessions.
True Communicore Confessions with Jeff and George.
And
Before this gets kind of crazy, maybe we should stop.
I think we should just jump into the history.
Okay, let's do that.
It's time for Disney History.
Shortly after the opening and success of Walt Disney World in Florida, the Walt Disney Company decided that building a theme park in another country would be a fantastic idea. Now,
I can see it. Yeah.
What?
I can see it being a great idea.
No, of course, of course.
Sure.
So, Tokyo Disneyland, it opened in 1983, obviously to a huge success, and that kind of set the stage for international expansion of Disney theme parks. So, in late 1984, the heads of Disney's theme park division, being Dick Nunis and Jim Cora, they came up with a list of 1,200 possible European locations for a new park. And by the end of March of 1985, the number of possible locations for a park had been reduced to 4, 2 in France and 2 in Spain. Now, both nations saw the potential economic advantage of a Disney theme park, and they both offered complete financing deals to Disney to try to get them to come to them.
I didn't know there were 1,200 sites in Europe.
That's a lot of sites.
Wow.
That's like more sites that are on the internet.
Yeah, I would imagine. Oh, whew, okay. Well, while both Spanish sites offered a climate similar to that of the stateside parks, Disney had more interest in the French locations. One was eliminated due to apparently shallow bedrock, making construction too difficult. So the second, it's a site in the rural town of Marne-la-Vallée, was chosen because of its proximity to Paris and its central location in Western Europe.
Now, Michael Eisner, our old BFF and Disney CEO at the time, he actually signed the first letter of agreement with the French government for the 4,940-acre site in December 1985, and the first financial contracts were drawn up the following spring. But by March 1987, the final contract was signed by the leaders of the Walt Disney Company and the French government, and construction actually began in August 1988.
So much like they had done in the past with Walt Disney World, they opened a preview center called Espace Euro Disney to help get people excited for what was at the time known as Euro Disneyland. In fact, excitement was so high that plans for a second gate right next to Euro Disneyland were already being drawn up. And this park would have been called the Disney MGM Studios Europe.
They're so clever with their names, aren't they?
The naming convention is amazing.
It's
absolutely amazing.
Unbelievable. So, much like they did with Walt Disney World, they wanted to be able to control the hotel business around the entire resort. So it was decided that 5,200 Disney-owned hotel rooms would be built within the complex itself. So in March 1998, Disney and a council of architects, including Frank Gehry, Michael Graves, Robert Stern, Stanley Tigerman, and Robert Venturi, they decided on an exclusively American theme in which each hotel would depict a different region of the United States. And by the time the resort opened in April 1992, 7 hotels housing 5,800 rooms had been built on the site of the resort. That's a lot of rooms.
Yeah, especially designed for an American theme. I mean, how pretentious.
Yeah, really. Jeez.
How pretentious. So, well, of course, it's all based on Tokyo Disneyland.
Yes, obviously.
Wanting that American experience. Okay, well, so of course, it would not be a Disney theme park without some controversy. Oh, got to have that. The entire idea of building a Disney theme park in France was a pretty hot topic. Many critics, including prominent French intellectuals, hated the idea of what they considered to be the cultural imperialism of Euro Disney. They felt it would encourage France to take on what they considered to be an unhealthy American type of consumerism. For others, Euro Disney became a sort of symbol of America within the heart of France. And in June 1992, a group of French farmers blockaded Euro Disney in protest of farm policy supported at the time by the United States.
So, of course, it just kind of got much worse from there. A journalist for a prominent French newspaper, Le Figaro, he wrote, "I wish with all my heart that the rebels would set fire to Euro Disneyland." Now, I said that really sweetly, like someone would say in a Disney movie, but it's really not that sweet. There was a Parisian stage director, and he named the park a cultural Chernobyl, which,
Yeah.
to me, it's funny, but it's not at the same time. It's really terrible. Ironically enough, that phrase would be repeated for many years to come by the media during Euro Disney's initial years because of its, pretty much failure. But there were a lot of other things they didn't like, such as Disney's American managers requiring English to be spoken in all their meetings, and Disney's appearance code for the cast members.
Oh, yeah, fun. Well, regardless of all of these issues, Euro Disney opened for employee preview and testing in March of 1992. And during this time, guests were mostly the cast members and their families testing the facilities and operations. Press were not allowed to attend to until the day before opening day. Speaking of which, opening day was April 12th, 1992. Euro Disney Resort and its theme park, Euro Disneyland, officially opened on those days. So much like with the opening of Disneyland in 1955, guests were warned of chaos on the roads, and a government survey indicated that 500,000 people carried by 90,000 cars might attempt to enter the complex. However, by midday, the car park was only about half full, suggesting an attendance level below 25,000 people. And many people assumed that people were taking the advice to stay away due to traffic seriously, and also that a railway strike prevented people from getting there. But, beyond that, the park did not do so well. Due to the European recession that August, the park faced financial difficulties as there was a lack of things to do and an overabundance of hotels, leading to serious underperformance.
Now, in May 1992, entertainment magazine The Hollywood Reporter reported that about 25% of Euro Disney's workforce, which was about 3,000 people, they had resigned from their jobs because of unacceptable working conditions. It was also reported that the park's attendance was well below what was expected. However, the disappointing attendance can at least be partially explained by the recession and the increased unemployment which was affecting France and most of the world at that time. So when the ambitious construction of the resort began, the economy was still on an upswing, so they just assumed it would continue to be on an upswing. Clearly, they were wrong. So Euro Disney responded in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, claiming that only 1,000 people had actually left their jobs. And, however, in response to the financial situation, Disney ordered that the Disney MGM Studios Europe, again, great name, but they ordered that project would be put on hiatus until a further decision could be made. And prices at all the hotels and even ticket prices, they was reduced as well to try to draw people back into the park.
Boy, imagine how worse it would have been if they would have introduced My Magic Plus.
Oh, boy. Oh, let's not even think about My Magic Plus in 1992.
Oh, no. Let's jump on AOL and check, kids. Okay, so despite all these efforts, by May of 1992, daily park attendance was around 25,000 instead of the predicted 60,000. The Euro Disney Company stock price spiraled downwards, and July 23rd, 1992, Euro Disney announced an expected net loss in its first year of operation of approximately 300 million French francs. During Euro Disney's first winter, hotel occupancy was so low that they decided to close the Newport Bay Club Hotel during the season. And initial hopes were that each visitor would spend around $33 per day, but near the end of 1992, it was determined that they were spending much less. Efforts to improve attendance, including serving alcoholic beverages with meals inside Euro Disneyland, since it was a cultural thing for them to do there.
Now, by the next summer, the park opened a new Indiana Jones roller coaster ride. However, yes, with that music, you would feel it's exciting.
Oh,
but it wasn't.
Sorry, you said Indiana Jones. I gotta.
You got excited. I understand.
Yeah,
we all
okay,
do.
Okay.
The problem was, a few weeks after the ride opened, there were a lot of problems with the emergency brakes, and that resulted in a lot of guest injuries. So the ride was shut down for a period of time so that safety investigations could be conducted. That certainly did not help the park's image at all. But by 1994, due to financial difficulties within the company and poor performance of the park, there were a lot of rumors that Euro Disney was getting close to having to declare bankruptcy. And the banks and the backers had meetings. They tried to work out some of these problems involving the financial problems and blah, blah, blah. But in March 1994, Disney went into negotiations with the bank so they can try to get some help for their debt. And as a last resort, the Walt Disney Company threatened to close the park, leaving the banks with the land and not getting any of their money made back.
Yeah, okay. Talk about an abandoned theme park.
Yep.
Jeez. Okay, so in January of 1994, Sanford Litvak, an attorney from New York City and former U.S. Assistant Attorney General, was assigned to be Disney's lead negotiator regarding Euro Disney's future. In February of 94, Litvak made an offer, without the consent of Michael Eisner or Frank Wells, to split the debts between Euro Disney's creditors and Disney. After the bank showed interest, Litvak informed Eisner and Wells, who were not too pleased, but they really had no choice at this point in time. And on March 14th, 1994, the day before the annual shareholders meeting, the banks succumbed to Disney's demands. Dun, dun, dun!
Just made it really dramatic.
We got to.
So the creditor banks bought $50 million worth of Euro Disney shares, and they forgave 18 months of interest and deferred interest payments for the next 3 years. Disney invested $750 million into Euro Disney and granted a 5-year suspension of royalty payments. In June that same year, Saudi Arabian Prince Al-Walid bin Al-Saud, he cut a deal where the Walt Disney Company bought 51% of a new $1.1 billion share issue, with the rest being offered to existing shareholders at below market rates, with the prince buying any that were not taken up by the existing shareholders up to a 24.5% holding. Thankfully, from there, things started to work up a little bit.
Yeah, there were too many numbers in that.
Way too many numbers. Way
section.
too many numbers.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've hit May of 1995, and a new attraction opened at the theme park. Space Mountain, de la Terre à la Lune, had been planned since the inception of Euro Disneyland under the name Discovery Mountain, but was reserved for a revival of public interest. The attraction premiered as Space Mountain at the Walt Disney World Resort's Magic Kingdom in 1975, so it was redesigned for Euro Disneyland to include a cannon launch system, inversions, and an on-ride soundtrack. The $100 million attraction was dedicated in a ceremony attended by celebrities such as Elton John, Claudia Schiffer, and astronaut Buzz Aldrin, and one of those three makes sense.
Yes, only one of them makes sense.
Which should be Claudia Schiffer, because she's the one I was going to look at.
Duh, I mean, that's who I would have picked.
I mean, that's, yeah, okay.
So,
right.
In July 1995, Euro Disney reported its first ever quarterly profit of $35.3 million. Way to go, guys. It only took you a couple of years. In November 1995, the results for the fiscal year ending in September were released. And in 1 year, the theme park's attendance had climbed from 8.8 million to 10.7 million, which was an increase of 21%. Also, hotel occupancy had climbed from 60% to 68.5%. So after debt payments, Disneyland Paris ended the year with a net profit of $22.8 million. Good job, guys.
And was that slightly less than Eisner's bonus?
Probably much less.
Probably much less. So, okay. Well, as of 2002, Euro Disneyland underwent a name change to Disneyland Resort Paris to better help, get away from their old image and into a new one. However, the park still incurred a net loss in the 3 years following the name change. And in January 2005, they launched a new marketing plan to bring new first-time European visitors to the resort. Come visit Disneyland Paris. It does not stink.
Please, it's fun.
Boy, we have really bad French
We're
accents.
terrible French accents. I'm sorry.
We actually, most accents we do are pretty bad.
Okay, that's fair.
That's fair. Okay. Okay. So by the end of that year, 2002, the Walt Disney Company had agreed to write off all debt that the park owed to the Walt Disney Company itself. And this same year, having been open fewer than 15 years, Disneyland Paris had become the #1 tourist destination for Europe, outselling the Louvre and the Eiffel Tower.
Go figure,
Because
right?
they should have renamed it the Eiffel Tower of Terror.
Ooh, see, I would go on it
That
more
would have
often
been awesome.
then.
That would have been awesome.
So, new advertising campaigns and deals with the railways made it much easier for the resort to continue to turn a profit. In fact, in 2007, the resort had a 12% increase in revenue. By August 2008, the resort brought in its 20 millionth visitor and made for the third consecutive year of growth in revenues for the resort with a record of 15.3 million visitors in attendance. So, despite the resort's financial hardships, it has generated 37 billion euros in tourism-related revenues over 20 years, and it supports on average 55,000 jobs in France annually. I haven't been there. I want to go.
Yep.
We should go.
I think we need to do a Communicore or two there.
I'd be totally okay with that idea. People should pay us to go, though, so we can cover some more of the attractions there. That's what I think.
True. That's true.
I mean, we're not asking for much. We're just asking you for plane
No.
tickets and lodging and tickets to Disneyland Paris.
Yeah, and food.
And food. Oh, yeah, food's important, too. I forgot about that.
Souvenirs.
Souvenir money's good. I guess
Yeah,
travel money
souvenir
also.
money.
Got some
Yeah, travel money in there. I mean,
expenses, all that other stuff.
You know, we'll probably need to take like a hotspot and some other
yeah, that's
things
true.
to
We're going to
live
do those, too. This
vlog.
bill's adding up. But if you want to sponsor us, I mean, just send us an email, and we'd
Sure.
like to go.
Yeah, we'll do it.
He's a nerd, he's a geek, but we all like to hear him speak. So listen up to the words from his speech. It's George's Book of the Week.
Okay, so this week's book is Moose, Chapters from My Life, written by Robert B. Sherman and edited by his son, Robert J. Sherman. And Jeff and I both got review copies of this, so we'll do sort of like we do with the 60-second review and go back and forth. It's a battle of wits. Just talking about the book itself like we normally do. And right off the bat, this was a fantastic surprise when it came in the mail because I forgot we were getting review copies of it and cracked it open immediately. Oh, I guess I should back up. For those of you guys who don't know, Robert B. Sherman is Richard Sherman's brother. They wrote all the songs for Mary Poppins, It's a Small World, a lot of theme park attraction music. So yeah, got to get that out of the way. But
How do
this
you not
book
know
is-
the Sherman brothers?
know,
If you're
but-
listening to the show and you don't know who the Sherman brothers are, shame on you.
Yeah, I know. Shame on you. So the book was just published at the end of 2013, and I'm flipping to the back of my copy now, including the index. It's got 458 pages. It's a large book, but I have to admit, I loved it. I was totally surprised by how much I enjoyed it, and it wasn't quite like a page turner, like, you know, a really great novel like Hollow World by Nick Pobierski, but it keeps you do want to read more. You want to see his life story, see how it turns out. And Jeff and I were talking about this before the show. They mention in the foreword, his son, Robert J. Sherman, mentions that when he first read it, he was disappointed with it because it's very non-linear. It doesn't start with his birth, you know, and end with his death. I mean, it starts with the war, you know, World War II. And it's immediately, it grabs you, and it doesn't stop until the end of the book.
Yeah,
Really.
and I think what really... All right, let me start again. I think even we need to say that on top of being a brilliant songwriter, he is a brilliant writer as well.
Yes,
And I don't think a lot of people realize that because the book itself is, to me, so beautifully written. Like, I was kind of surprised at how well it was written, to be honest with you. You know, he was a writer and he wrote really well. But you were talking about how long the book is, how many pages it has. I think what helped it in my mind was that each quote-unquote chapter was pretty much his own self-contained story. So, you know, I forget how many there was. We'll just say 30. Because it was broken up into those 30 short stories, essentially, about his life, to me, it made it a lot easier to digest. So sure, I didn't read it as quickly as I read some other books, but it made it easier for me to read, 2, 3, 4 at a time, put it down, and come back to it in a couple of days and read another handful of stories. And granted, they, like you said, they were not linear, which in some cases, it helped, in some cases it didn't, but every story was very insightful, very meaningful, and I was very, very happy with the overall product.
I have to agree with you on that. I mean, they say at the beginning of the book, Robert B. Sherman, not his son, that, you know, a lot of what's covered in here is not going to be covered in Walt's time. A lot of the stuff, that was covered in Walt's time is not going to be in this book, because he felt that really covered a lot of the work they did with the Disney studios very, very well. There are some stories about working for Disney in here, some very charming stories, and some few stories that'll make you scratch your head. But I was disappointed with that, because not many people can get hold of Walt's time. It's out of print, it's hard to get, but that shouldn't stop you from reading this book. So many stories.
There were a lot of stories I was surprised with too, where I was almost like, this is going into some dark places in some of them. And I mean, definitely not a Disney published book, obviously. Like, you can tell right off the bat by the content. But like, to me, it was fascinating to learn more about him as a human being and his thoughts and his feelings. And I really appreciated how open and honest he was about his life and his experiences, and even the quote unquote feud with his brother that, you know, was very prominent in the film The Boys. It was very enlightening to hear his side of it, and how blown out of proportion the film makes it to make it, you know, more dramatic for a film.
Yeah, and I thought that walking away with that, hearing his side of the story, really makes me want to hear Richard's side as well. I would love for him to tackle something like this, of this nature, although he's not a writer. A musician, of course, a composer. But, you know, the stories that he tells, I mean, you go from World War II to growing up in New York as a child, then spending his teen years in California, then back into Europe, time spent in Mexico, visiting friends, short jaunts to Florida, girlfriends breaking his heart, you know, and dealing with depression and a bum knee all of his life. Due to a bullet and some surgery, and being addicted to pills, and having to defeat that, meeting his wife, falling in love with his wife through the book. I thought, you know, what an amazing woman
the entire story, again, non-linear, but it was great to get it in these chunks, and it made me appreciate him even more as a person. And I really feel like I can't recommend this book more, like, enough. Like, it's great. I loved it. It wasn't what I was expecting it to be. It was much, much better, and I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I wish he had found more acclaim as an author. And, you know, some of his paintings were showcased. I mean, he was a fantastic painter, and that wasn't discovered till a few years before his death, that he had a talent at that. You mentioned earlier the feud. I'm glad to hear his side of it, and that it wasn't as much as it was. I think a lot of Disney fans can take that to heart.
Absolutely.
And that it's worth it. But, you know, I have to agree with you. It's a wonderful book, and I love the tiny little stories that Robert ran into so many famous people on the cusp of them being famous, like Elvis Presley, all these huge people.
A lot of those things were crazy. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm gonna start referring to that kind of thing as the Rolly effect, where, you know, these people that we admire in Disney, they have all these run-ins with famous cultural icons that we never expected. And the same was true for this book. I mean, there were so many unexpected stories, and it just made it all the more better to me.
I agree. Definitely pick up a copy of this book. I think it's well worth it for any Disney fan, especially if you're a fan of the Sherman Brothers. A ton of insight into what made them tick, what made them fantastic writing partners. And, you know, you sort of see what happened to their career throughout the years, and how they almost had some resurgences. But once again, the title of this book is Moose, Chapters from My Life by Robert B. Sherman.
Sometimes you might see it, sometimes you don't. Hey, look, what's that? It's a five-legged goat.
The Disney Vacation Club booth near Under the Sea Journey of the Little Mermaid in the Magic Kingdom holds some really cool little details. Now, keeping with the Little Mermaid theme, there is an amazing map along the back wall of that building. Now, the map points out some famous destinations around the world, like Australia and South Africa and Disneyland and Walt Disney World, because of course you have those on all the maps. But when you look a little bit closer, you'll find that some of the images on the map, especially in the water, they may look a little familiar. Namely, there's one of a dragon attacking a ship, and there's one of a sea monster that's swallowing a ship, and there's one of sirens that are causing a shipwreck. Obviously, a lot of ship-related things because of the Little Mermaid. But all three of these drawings, and there's actually a fourth one as well, they can be found inside the extended queue of Under the Sea Journey of the Little Mermaid, painted on a dome, the dome ceiling, which is has a poem about the sea, tying the entire area together. And that fourth painting featured in the queue, that is actually concept art of Ursula from The Little Mermaid when they were first putting the film together. So kind of cool that they kind of played it all together.
That's awesome. That's like 5 or 6 or 8 five-legged goats.
Yeah, it's a whole bunch of little
them.
details at once. I like that. I like that
We
a
need-
lot.
We need to come up with a name like, when you have more than one five-legged goat.
When
Like you have a
goatception?
gander or a murder of crows.
A murder of crows.
Something like that.
What do you
that's
call
it.
a
So-
group of goats?
So, okay, all right, cadets. Send us your emails. Hit us up on Facebook. Hit us up on Twitter with what you think we should call a group of five-legged goats.
That are all together in one.
That are all together in one, like
That's
a
a good idea.
penta something or something. And we'll have some sort of prize we'll give out. We're not sure what.
But it'll be
because
something.
You are witnessing Communicore magic right now because I just thought of this and Jeff agreed and we went with it and we're
Boom.
going with it.
Boom. This is how magic happens.
Maybe it'll be a date with one of us in one of the parks.
Probably. I'm okay with that. Because I'm
Gotta
always
hope
at
I
Disneyland
don't
anyway.
win it because then I have to go on a date with you. That'd be horrible.
Oh, that'd be... Oh, God.
Yeah.
Let's
Well, I'm
not
not
do
going to
that.
enter. Forget it. Okay, well, don't forget to send your unofficial submissions to our unofficial contest, naming a group of five-legged goats that are together. And thank you guys so much for watching and listening to another episode.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Leave us a comment and give us a rating on iTunes if you get a chance. We'd really appreciate it.
Yep. So email us at communicoreweekly@gmail.com and, maybe tell us what you think the grouping of goats should be.
Of course, and you can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Communicore Weekly.
Yep. And follow us on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Imaginerding and he's at Jeff Heimbuck.
And of course, you can call us on the Communicore Weekly Goat line at 424-785-4628.
Yeah, you can also leave what you think the goat thing should be on the goat line.
Exactly.
Awesome. We can do this. So, okay. And do not forget to run as fast as you can to iTunes or Amazon or CD Baby to pick up a copy of Communicore Weekly, the musical. Trust us, you will love it. You will thank us. You will sing these songs forever.
Yes, you will.
Ever. Okay, well, for Jeff Heimbuck, I'm George Taylor.
And for George Taylor, I'm Jeff Heibuck. Thanks so much for watching and listening to us, guys and girls. We'll see you next time on Communicore Weekly, the greatest online show.
ASCII.